morning. It is Vlogmas day number 3. So, I mentioned a few times how I've been buying books from the dollar store. Earlier in this year, I had got back into reading, and then that kind of phased out, and now I'm getting back into it again. So, over this past year, I have gotten 5 books. I've read 3 of them, and I'm on my 4th one right now. So, I thought that I would review slash talk to you guys a little bit about the books that I've read. They carry a bunch of different genres, but this is not a bookstore. In my Dollar Tree, at least, they only have like one small section, like a little shelf of books. And so, whenever I go there, I do like to stop by and just see what I can find. All 5 of the books are fiction books, but they have like a historical aspect about them. So, it's some kind of like historical context where like this is not a real person, but it's coming from a lens as if this could have been somebody who lived back in that time. So I'm just going to go in chronological order from what I started with to where I am now. So this one was the first book that I got from the dollar store. It is Weird All Lands, a novel by Jenny Wexler. So this one is not like a historical fiction, but I thought that this one was pretty good, and I'm just gonna read like the synopsis for you. Stevie Rosenstein has never made a true friend, never fallen in love. Moved from city to city by her father's unrelenting job, she finds it too hard to care for someone, to trust in anything. The pain of leaving always hurts too much, but soon she'll learn to trust, to love. Twice. Drew and Shane have been best friends through everything. The painful death of Shane's dad, the bitter separation of Drew's parents. Through sleepaway camps and family heartaches, basketball games, and immeasurable losses, they've always been there for each other. When Stevie meets Drew and Shane, life should go on as normal, but a simple coin toss alters the course of their year in profound and unexpected ways. I actually thought that this book was really good. Basically, it's like a high school romance. It's one of those, what do you call them? Love triangles. So Stevie is the girl. She's the main character, and she moves around a lot because her father, because of the industry that he works in, he has to move around a lot. So she moves to this school, and she ends up meeting these 2 guys, Drew and Shane, who, like I just read, are best friends. She never really has been like good at making friends, and it's been really painful because whenever she does make a friend, then it's like, okay, now she has to leave, which I resonate with because we move a lot. I've kind of felt that same way where it's like hard to make friends, especially as an adult. It was easier when you're in school, like high school, college, because you're surrounded by a bunch of your peers. But as an adult, the only time you're really like around people is when you're at work. But for me, I've actually been remote pretty much like all of my career, because I did graduate in 2020, and ever since then I've just always been remote. It's already hard to make friends as an adult, and then when you're like at home all of the time, that makes it even harder. But then when you're moving every 2 years, it's like when you finally do make that 1 or 2 friends, then you end up leaving. The last place that we were in was in Rochester, and I had just started like kind of making friends with a couple of people that I had worked with, and then we ended up moving. The last thing that I ended up getting to do with my friends was go out apple picking, and then we went out to eat after, and it was a really fun experience, and I'm glad that we did that and I met them, and we do still keep in touch every once in a while. But anyways, basically there's like a whole love triangle that goes on, and Stevie has to choose between the 2 guys. Which one does she go with? Actually, it kind of gives me, as I'm talking about it, like the summer that I turned pretty vibes, and the ending also is like kind of a surprise. I didn't expect it to end the way that it did. Okay, the second book that I got from the Dollar Tree is this one. So it's Every Rising Sun by Jamila Ahmed, and I'll read the synopsis for you as well. Every Rising Sun is a retelling of the Arabian Nights that puts Scheherazade front and center. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. In 12th century Persia, dreamy and sheltered, Scheherazade stumbles upon the Malik's beloved wife intertwined with a lover in a sun-dappled courtyard. Scheherazade, whose late mother bestowed her with a love of stories, retrieves a mahogany box filled with fine paper. And on one translucent piece, she pens an anonymous poem to the Malik, recounting the story of his wife's infidelity. Scheherazade's words set the Seljuk Empire on fire. Enraged at his wife's betrayal, the once gentle Malik beheads her. But when that killing does not quench his anger, he marries and beheads a new bride each night. To suppress her guilt, quell threats of a revolt, and perhaps marry the man she has loved since childhood, Scheherazade steps forward to be the next one. On their wedding night, she begins a yarn, but as the sun ascends, she cuts the story short. And with every rising sun, she must navigate the perils of the Third Crusade and maneuver through the age's greatest courts while keeping the Malik enthralled by her otherworldly tales night after night, because the slightest misstep could cost Scheherazade her head. I really love this book. I love it so much that I would read it again. And I've heard of Arabian Nights, but I've actually never read that book before. I hear that it's really long. This book was so good. It makes me want to read Arabian Nights. So it's on my list to read that. I think that one is like a collection of a bunch of different stories. And so like basically this follows that same premise. So it's one main story, and then within that we hear the stories that Scheherazade tells the Malik night after night. Some of them are like a continuation. Well, I guess they're all a continuation in some way, but then some of the stories will like spin off into their own stories, but they all kind of connect back. So it's kind of like a web or like a world of stories. But I really loved this book so much. This is one of those ones that's like historical fiction where no, Scheherazade is not real, but a girl like this, a story like this could have actually happened back in that time. It's a great way to learn history, but in a way that's more fun. Her story is something that a lot of people can really resonate with. As a woman navigating the world, she feels a lot of guilt and blame. It's up to her to figure out, how do I manage this so that nobody else has to get hurt. But then there are some things that happen in the book where you kind of like raise your eyebrow at her, like, whoa, okay, girl, you're being a little bit hypocritical here. What are you doing? Okay, and then this is the third book, and the one that I most recently finished. So I actually just finished reading this one last night. It's called The Long Way Back by Nicole Bart. Mother and daughter, Charlie and Eva, never sought social media fame. But when a stunning photo of Eva went viral, fame found them. Now, after more than 2 years documenting life on the road in their vintage Airstream trailer, the duo has temporarily settled on the north shore of Lake Superior. When Eva goes missing less than a week before her high school graduation, it's Charlie who is immediately suspected of foul play, not just by their fans, but also by the police and the FBI. The rosy facade they portrayed online hid a complicated and potentially dangerous reality. In order to clear her name and find out what has happened to her daughter, Charlie will have to confront her own role in Eva's disappearance and whether she knows her daughter at all. This one was also a really good book. It started off a little bit slow. It took me a while to finish this book because I picked it up and put it down and picked it up and put it down because it didn't really like grasp me in the beginning. It actually did to kind of like pick up and get a lot more interesting. This book was actually really wild and crazy. I did not expect any of the things that happened in this book to happen. It was a little bit so far-fetched that I was kind of like, okay, come on now, really? But it was entertaining and definitely a book that I would read again. It's just them. The father is not in Eva's life. Eva is her daughter. Charlie is the mom. They just live like a really normal life. Eva doesn't have like a lot of friends. She's actually even bullied. One day they're like out and they take this picture and then it just blows up on Instagram and suddenly boom, now they're content creators and start being like basically travel vloggers, kind of like when everybody was doing like the van life type stuff. That's Eva and Charlie, and she gets to explore the world. But not only that, there's this dichotomy from like, okay, her old life where she was kind of like a bullied nobody, and now she's like this Instagram famous person who everybody loves. They have like over 100,000 followers and all of these like fans, and you think this is exactly the type of life that she wants, but then we kind of learn that there is like another hidden layer to it, and then things kind of change, and you kind of see that shift as she's growing up, her kind of growing into her own self. So it's very much like a coming of age story. She makes a lot of mistakes. There's some crazy things that happens. Eva actually ends up disappearing. Everybody just automatically assumes, oh, it's got to be Charlie. As her mother, the last thing that you want to do is hurt your child. You have to figure out how to clear her name. And there's a lot of like sneaking around and stuff like that. And it's a good book. I would definitely recommend reading it. And then the fourth book, this is the one that I just picked up last night. I'm only on page 18. Kunstler's in Paradise by Kathleen Shine. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So it says, for years, Mammy Kunstler, 93 years old, as clever and glamorous as ever, has lived happily in her bungalow in Venice, California, with her inscrutable housekeeper and her gigantic St. Bernard. Their tranquility is upended when Mammy's grandson, Julian, arrives from New York City. Like many a 20-something, he has come to seek his fortune in Hollywood. But it is 2020. The global pandemic sweeps in, and Julian's short visit suddenly has no end in sight. Mammy was only 11 when the Kunstlers escaped Vienna in 1939. They made their way, stunned and overwhelmed, to sunny, surreal Los Angeles, where they joined a colony of distinguished Jewish musicians, writers, and intellectuals also escaping Hitler. Now faced with months of lockdown and a willing listener, Mammy begins to tell Julian the buried stories of her years in Los Angeles. Her escapades with eminent emigres like Arnold Schoenberg, Christopher Isherwood, Thomas Mann, and Greta Garbo. While the pandemic cuts Julian off from the life he knows, Mammy's tales open up a world of lives that came before him. They reveal to him just how much the past holds of the future. So I thought that was interesting that this book is like set during like 2020, because that's something that we all recently lived through. It just really kind of like shifted everybody's perspective about like work-life balance and what are the things that like we really care about and the things that we really want in life. That time period 2020 was like a period of reflection, and basically that's what this book is. Like Mammy, the main character, is reflecting on her life and imparting that history and wisdom to her grandson Julian. So at this point right now, in the first 18 pages, we haven't met Julian yet. We've just kind of learned a little bit of history about Mammy. They were in Austria, I believe it was, and things are going on. You know, people are kind of like in denial. They don't want to leave their home, but then things start getting progressively worse, and then they realize we do have to leave. Like, it is time for us to go. And so then they go on a journey, and it kind of talks about like how they went from place to place to place until they finally made it to America. First they go to New York, and then they make their way all the way across the country to Los Angeles. Basically, there's like a guy in the entertainment industry who creates this company that is specifically for employing immigrants to help them get away from the war. And so that's where things have kind of ended. So I am excited to read this book because, again, I do really like the historical fiction and, you know, just kind of getting that perspective of what it might have been for somebody during that time, having to flee their land and move to a different country as an immigrant. Mammy, the main character, you can tell that she has like a really great, fun, crazy type of personality. So I'm looking forward to hear what kinds of like adventures and situations and stuff that she's gonna get in throughout life and how she ends up, you know, where she is. And then the last book that I have to share with you is called The Adult. It's by Bronwyn Fisher. So this is the 5th book that I've gotten from the dollar store, and I haven't read this yet. 18-year-old Natalie has just arrived at her first year of university in Toronto, leaving her remote, forested hometown for the big, impersonal city. Everyone she encounters seems to know exactly who they are. She reads advice listicles and watches videos online and thinks about how to fit in, how to really become someone, whoever that might be. And then she meets Nora, an older woman who takes an unexpected interest in her and is drawn unstoppably into Nora's orbit. She begins spending more and more of her time at Nora's perfect, tidy home in her beautiful, quiet world. Natalie lies to her floor mates about her absence, inventing a fake off campus boyfriend, and carefully protects this sacred adult relationship. This only deepens her obsession, even as she comes to suspect Nora is hiding something. As the secrets multiply and the intensity of the romance threatens to overwhelm her, Natalie realizes that the new adult identity she had imagined for herself is far from the one she's actually coming to know. With atmospheric electric prose that captures the anxiety and emotional intensity of young adulthood like never before, The Adult is about sex, yearning, poetry, and learning to free oneself from the expectations of others. So I was interested in reading this one because, again, it's another kind of like coming of age story. I think we all can kind of like resonate with, like, growing older and wanting to make your own path. And sometimes it causes you to make bad decisions because everything is new and exciting. And you just want to like be free and be on your own and do this and do that. And then things go wrong. But at the end of the day, that is how we learn, right? And again, it's very realistic. Like, I'm sure it happens all the time. People leave off to college and, they just become like a whole new person. And it's just one of those places where you can really like reinvent yourself. It was just like a completely different world of like freedom when I went off to college. And then I was able to just kind of like explore who I was, what do I like, try different things. You make mistakes and stuff, but then you like bounce back. You just figure out like what are the things that I do want to do and what are the things that I wouldn't do again. I am looking forward to finishing reading Kunstler's in Paradise, and then once I finish that, I'll start reading this one and I'll let you guys know how it goes. But yeah, I'm really liking my little collection so far. I definitely plan on making more trips to find more books at the dollar store. And if you guys know of any other places that are near or in Philly where you can get like cheaps for it, where you can get books for an inexpensive price, please let me know. I do believe that it's important to support the library. At some point during this Vlogmas, take a trip to my local library and rent out some books from there. But every once in a while, I do want to kind of be able to build up my personal book collection. And so if I can find like inexpensive books, then I love that. And then I have one more thing that I want to show you guys. I just thought that this was so cute. So I have been seeing a lot of these bookmark crafts lately. It's a really, really big paper clip. And I made this maybe about 2 weeks ago. So at that time we were still in like the fall vibes. It's a cute little pumpkin with a little brown leaf and a green stem. And I made these out of air dry clay. And I thought that this would be like a really good like bookish product to put in my shop. So if this is something that you guys want to see and you would buy something like this, let me know. I want to experiment with making some like holiday themed ones, but I really thought that this was super cute and super functional for my bookish people who love to read and want something just a little bit different than the traditional bookmark. There's two ways you can use it because it is a paper clip. So there is like, see that part that you can kind of like open, and then you can take it and you can just slide it inside. You could take it and you could just slide it inside a few pages and it'll just sit, but basically it'll just sit inside the book and save your page, and it just sits right on top like that. So I thought that that was the cutest thing ever, and I love it so much. I wasn't sure like with the color. I feel like this one came out more like a realistic looking pumpkin, and I kind of want it to be more cutesy. So I didn't know if I should make the colors more like bright and vibrant so that they look a little less realistic, but I thought it was so cute. I just wanted to show you that. That is the end of Vlogmas Day 3. Thank you for listening to me talk about my collection of books. When I was younger, I used to really love to read. I used to sit down in my mom's rocking chair and literally read for hours. So It is very healing and nostalgic to get back into reading again. And I just like easy, fun reads, nothing that's like too serious. It's just, really fun to get like kind of lost in another world and, you know, look at somebody else's perspective. So if you're getting back into reading, or maybe you've been reading for a long time, I'd love to hear about what kind of books you like to read. Where do you source your books from? Definitely let us know in the comments and share with us again, like I said, what are some books that you would recommend, and where would you recommend people look if they want to get books for inexpensive. Again, support your local library and also your local independent bookstores. Till next time, see you again. Bye, friends.